Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Best of British Blackwell. Today we're going to be making something so easy, so simple, it's probably the most easy recipe I've ever made on this channel. It's for a prawn cocktail. This is a dish that dates back in Britain, certainly back to the 1960s, where it became quite popular in a lot of steakhouses. My nana always used to make a prawn cocktail at Christmas as well. That's why that's my first kind of memories of it. I'm going to be making a slight twist and variation on the dish, as I always do, but come over, have a look at the ingredients and let's make a start. Okay, so here we are. Here are the ingredients that I'm going to be using for my take on this classic British prawn cocktail. Prawns to start off with. Now, these I bought from the shop. They were already cooked. The key with buying pre-cooked prawns is never freeze them, because they'll just all lose their flavour. So buy them a day before or the day that you're going to use them. These are king prawns. They've been deveined already, so you don't have to mess around with them, but use them as pretty much as soon as you buy them. Never freeze them. We've got some baby gem lettuce here, which we're going to be shredding up nice and fine. We've got some cucumber. We've got some tomatoes. We've got some Vittoria tomatoes and some, what were these ones called? These are Sunglow tomatoes. I like to use these mainly just for the variation of colour in there. My additional ingredient here, lobster. I'm really glad to see that more shops are starting to sell lobster, more supermarkets are starting to sell it, and it's actually a little bit more reasonable in price than in previous years. You can buy them raw and cook them yourself. I actually bought these pre-cooked, and all we're going to be doing with this is cracking these open. I'll show you it very briefly. Cracking it open, flaking the meat out. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's all going to be flaked up, and we're going to be adding that in with our prawns. To make our sauce, there are four main ingredients. They are some mayonnaise, some salad cream, some tomato ketchup, and some Worcester sauce. Naturally, I'll be adding some seasoning in there, but actually when it comes to a seafood sauce, that is it. It's so simple to make, and yet you see people buying it in jars, and it's just not as good as making it yourself at home. So what we're going to start off with is getting this lobster out of the shell, ready to flake into our mixture. Then I'll show you how we put the rest of the dish together. So let's start on these lobsters. Okay, so very quick and basic tutorial on how to get meat out of a lobster. Like I said, great to see so many supermarkets and fishmongers now stocking lobster in here. It is still a little bit more expensive than we would like, but it's actually coming down in price quite a lot, so it's good to see. The only complaint I have about lobsters sold in Britain is they're not very big, so you're not going to get tons and tons of meat out of this, but the meat that you are going to get is going to be lovely. So step one, let's just rip the legs off of here. We'll come back to those in a moment. Don't be squeamish about this, it is already dead, you're not going to hurt it. Then we detach the tail from the body. And you can already see some beautiful, hopefully you can see some beautiful pink meat there already. Just give it a gentle squeeze and it will come out quite quickly. Now what you will notice is you've got this kind of discoloration to some of this meat here. That's not the best tasting meat in the world, so we will trim that up a little bit later. Put the head to one side. Straighten the tail out if you can. You've got a couple of legs on here, but don't worry about that too much. Straighten the tail out. You're going to take some force to do this, so really do watch your hands. Get a nice sharp knife straight on top of the back of the lobster. Give it a crunch. Cut straight through that back shell. Then prise it apart. As you prise it apart, it might start breaking like this. It's not going to be perfect, but you will notice that the meat, where it's cooked, will already start to separate from the shell. And there you go, you've got a big lump of shell off there already. Keep going all the way down. Crack that shell apart. Take it off, and then you've got beautiful lobster tail. And be sure to go right down into the fanned part of the tail, because there's a piece of meat down there as well. This is meat all the way through this tail, so don't leave any in there at all. There you go, there's your lobster tail. If you don't like the darker meat, trim it off. Put it to one side, don't worry about it, and then we'll just move on. So there you go, there's your lobster tail. Let's move on to inside the head. So lots of people tend to throw this away or not use it or make a bit of bisque out of it, and there's not loads and loads of meat in here, but if you are keen on the meat that's inside here, pretty much the same with the towel. Get the knife along the top, give it a bash, crack that shell, prise it open, out. Be careful, there are some sharp parts here, and look at that. You've got some meat inside there, some nice white meat. Give that a pull away. Again, you can just trim this darker meat away, but you've still got some white meat in there as well. We're going to flake this apart a little bit later, so we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's very quickly move on to these claws. I'm going to show you a great technique for getting them out. Get the back end of the knife, give them a good smack with the knife till they split. And then look at that great big piece of meat now there. Now you would think that you could just pull that out, but there's a bone in here. Quickest way to get the bone out is get his little thumb here or his little pincer. Pull that away. Look at that. That's a bone. Can't eat that. Throw that away. And then what you can do is take the meat out. No bones left in that. That's perfect. Moving on to the next one. That's cracked. Beautiful. Give it another wallop. Make sure you're not wearing anything too fancy when you do this, because you will get lobster shell all over yourself and lobster juice. There we go, finally got it. Take the back off. Again, this claw is slightly smaller. The lobster has a claw for cutting things and a claw for holding things. This would be the one for cutting. You can see there's like a serrated a pincer there, and he cuts with that. But same process applies. There is a bone in there, so you just pull this part out. There's the bone, and hopefully if you haven't cracked the shell too badly like I've done here, you should just be able to gently prise that lobster meat out. Now, this stuff that's left over here, what you could do with this, stick it in a pot, boil it up, blitz it all down and turn it into a lobster bisque, which is beautiful. I find that that's a little bit too much effort for me because I'm quite lazy. I just tend to throw it away, get it out of the house as quickly as possible. But there we go. Here's our lobster. I've done the two there. Like I said, not a great deal of meat in there, but we'll flake that up and we're going to add that into our prawn cocktail. Okay, let's get cracking with our sauce. We can make this up and put it to one side until we want it. So simple. Starting off with some mayonnaise. In fact, putting mayonnaise in here is something that I like to do. My nan never used to put mayonnaise in here. My nan would use tomato ketchup and salad cream to make this, but I like to make it extra creamy. So there we go. 3 big tablespoons of mayonnaise. Tomato ketchup. Equal amount of tomato ketchup. I'm just doing this by eye. You can measure this out if you want to, but I do it by eye and I do it by taste. Equal amount of the salad cream, and then a couple of dashes of Worcester sauce. Now, you may look at that and think you're not going to have enough there. So what I tend to do is I make it up in batches. So I'll give this a stir around, and then hopefully you can see the ingredients start to combine to make that pinky, almost orangey coloured cocktail sauce, and it starts to smell just like that beautiful cocktail sauce. Now, if I don't think I've got enough, all I do is grab my salad cream, add a little dash more, and because you've got already like a whole bowl of it, you can actually see, you can distinguish between the ingredients that you're putting in. So you can also almost see straight away that just there I've added the same amount of salad cream as I've added ketchup. So you're not going to mess with your ingredients too much, and it's not going to be too strong. But the key to this is tasting it. Just make sure that as you're stirring, once you've got all of the ingredients stirred together and mixed together beautifully, just give it a bit of a taste, which I'm going to do now. Get rid of that spoon, clean spoon all the time. You don't want to be putting that spoon back in the bowl. I would say, from my point of view, it needs a little bit more Worcester sauce and a little bit more, a little bit more salad cream. So essentially you can make this however you like it. If you like it more leaning on the side of tomato, put some more tomato sauce in there. If you like it more with the salad cream, which has got a little bit more of a kind of mellow flavour to it, then put some more salad cream in there. And if you don't like the idea of the mayonnaise, don't put mayonnaise in there. I've seen some people put double cream in there in the past, but that's not a bit of me. Once you've got it to the desired kind of texture, get a bit of seasoning in there. Okay, so starting with the cucumber. Again, some people don't put cucumber in there. I find that the cucumber adds a lovely bit of freshness to complement the acidity that you're going to get with that sauce. Cut the cucumber in half. In half again, so you've got beautiful triangles. And then all I do with these is I just slice them into beautiful triangle shapes. And that's it with the cucumber, really. And then what we do is we just flake those across the prawn cocktail. It's probably about as fancy as chopping as I get with any fruit or vegetable here. There we go. That's our cucumber done. Get it into a bowl on the side, because the construction process in this is all about layers. So you don't want to throw all the ingredients together, you want them separate so that you can pick at them as and when you want to add them into your dish. Here we go, beautiful baby gem lettuce. Now, the reason I use baby gem is because it's got this really kind of rough leaf texture, and what I find with that is that it holds on to the sauce. If you use something like an iceberg, which can be really quite watery, you'll find that the sauce and the water from the iceberg kind of just make the sauce a little bit too runny and a little bit too watery and a bit too watery, really. Don't really like that. So I tend to use these. Now what I do is I pick the leaves off like that. I don't tend to waste this. I will use that at some stage, but not necessarily for this dish. And then what I do is I get my knife. Lots of people are going to be moaning about me using a metal knife with lettuce leaves and the leaves browning and so on. Honestly, we're going to be eating these so soon. These lettuce leaves aren't going to have a chance to go brown. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, but I do agree you should be using a different knife. And then look what I've done there. I've just kind of flaked that up into shreds. Again, into a bowl over here. I'm going to do the next one in a minute. Into a bowl over here. This is another separate ingredient which we're going to be layering into this. Let's move on to the tomatoes. Okay, beautiful tomatoes here. Again, they just add a different texture into this dish. The lettuce is quite crispy. The cucumbers are quite cool and soothing against the acidity of the sauce. What you want is something to complement those prawns and bring the flavour back out of them. So the sweetness of a tomato, little baby tomato, is perfect. And I won't show you all of these. Let me just show you very quickly how I like to chop them for this dish. Is I put them stalk side down, cut it in half, turn it round, half again. Just get them into these little kind of jewel shape there. And like I said before, the reason I'm using yellow and red tomatoes is because they just look really good. You want them to kind of glisten in this dish. There we go. So after all of our preparation, which didn't actually take as long as it looked like it did, we're ready to start building this together. Now, prawn cocktail. The name prawn cocktail actually comes from 1920s Prohibition era in America, where you would go to a restaurant and a bar and they'd have nothing else to do with their cocktail glasses other than serve you your meal in it. So they called it a prawn cocktail. I think before that it was called a prawn or a shrimp salad. So a little bit of useless information for you there. As you can see, we've got all of our ingredients ready to go. Let me just focus in a little bit more on the glass so you can see how I'm building these layers up. First things first, we're going to start with a layer of our lettuce leaves. Get them straight in the bottom there. The reason that we put the leaves in the bottom is that we don't want all of the sauce to sink to the bottom of the glass and you'll be scraping the bottom of the glass for your sauce. We also get a couple of our tomatoes in there as well. Sorry about the noise in the background, got a baby crying there. And then we're going to get some yellow tomatoes in there as well. So you've got a nice salad base at the bottom. Then what we do is we get some of our sauce and just carefully layer the sauce. So we're building all of this up in layers, as I've said many times now. So just make sure the top of your salad leaves are covered there. Then we start to go in with our prawns. Nice big handful of prawns there, evenly spread out through the bottom of this glass. You've seen my videos before, you know I don't shrimp on the shrimp. Scrimp on the shrimp even. Some lobster in here. If you have a look at that lobster, you can see that there's some little orange lobster roe on there. Not to everybody's taste, very hard to get off of the lobster though, and it's not going to do you any harm at all. Those are little lobster eggs. Nothing wrong with those at all. Then what we do is some more sauce over all of these beautiful ingredients. It's such a fresh dish. More sauce there. And then we go in with a little bit more lettuce in there. A few more tomatoes in there. A bit more cucumber. Tiny little bit more. And we go back in again. Prawns. Now this is where the presentation comes into it, because this is the bit that you're going to see. So I want to get these in here nicely. A bit more lobster over the top there. Just show that off. Bit of lobster claw there so people know exactly what that is. And then finally another drizzle of sauce straight over the top. Look at this. Let that sauce ooze. Then the final finishing touch is a sprinkle of pepper. I use a little bit of Old Bay seasoning in here because it goes lovely with prawns. A little sprinkle of that. And then finally some paprika. Just adds another little dimension of colour. Now take a little look at that. Didn't take long to throw together. It's going to be a perfect starter for a beautiful meal. And you know, you've built up the layers of flavour in there as well. You've complemented the flavour with different ingredients, and you know, it just looks pretty, doesn't it? You can just imagine in the 1920s people being disappointed that they couldn't get a drink with their meal, and then somebody rocks up and serves them this. Beautiful. Really easy to make. The key is in the sauce. Make sure you get that just to your taste. Throw the type of ingredients there that you want to, and there you go, you've got yourself a beautiful starter. Enjoy.